So I'm by my high school, and they got a new sign in front, which is nice. Welcome to Deerfield High School, home of the Warriors. So, and there's our logo. And I was just thinking what it would have been like to be able to live in Deerfield for all 4 years, my junior and senior year. Then I think of movies like 16 Candles and all the other ones where they actually lived up here. But just after graduation, we moved back here after I left for Benedictine. The year I came back in 87, my sister moved into Riverwoods. And so we were back up here. And that summer I spent with Jim Becker, Pete Rossi, Gary Toussaint, and Jill. And it was an awesome summer. And then some other friends, senior and many others. And it was a great summer. So we get here. Deerfield High School, National Blue Ribbon School, 2022. So my nieces and nephews graduated here from this. My other nieces and nephews graduated from Park Ridge and Elk Grove. So, but it gave me a glimpse of what it would have been like to be able to live here for my junior and senior year. How it would have been so much better. And my academics would have been incredibly better. Because I wouldn't have had that, long commute. The point is, it would have been fine, too, with the commute if I could have stayed and I could have come up here. So it wasn't the commute. It was the problem that I didn't have access to a vehicle and I had to go home. So I could only use the vehicle for coming to school and then going right back at home. So it was a problem, no access. So I couldn't be like, I should have taken the Metro. Truly. I could have easily taken the Metro from the city of Chicago to Deerfield. And then gone from the Metro station, downtown Deerfield. I could have just walked to school. I walked to school from other places where we lived. So walking from downtown Deerfield to here would have been fine. So if I was going to school somewhere else and I was going to Deerfield High School, like I lived in the city, I could have taken the Metro. But we never thought about that. But there was a train not too far from Kildare, the street I lived on in Chicago, and taking the Metro to Deerfield High School, then I could have played football and wrestling. My mom could have had the car, and me and my brother, like David, he took 5 buses to Lane Tech and that. But the whole point is, it took him a long time to get to school and get home, but the whole point is that he didn't have to be home. So when he got out and had to leave, when he wanted to, so he could stay around for extracurricular or whatever, and then take the buses home. So he was on a better schedule than me. Me, I had to get out of school and hop on the highway and get in traffic. So it was a little bit different. Well, it was better during the fall because I played football. And Deerfield High School, we went to Tony Subs. Side note, I like Tony Subs. And this gas station has been here. It's been a few different names. But they have the hair salon and the cleaners. And I don't know, this cleaners right here could bid for the laundry services that they do at Deerfield High School. Deerfield High School leases gym uniforms. Now, this is another thing that, not Sudoku, but whatever uniform leasing. So just like for Catholic schools and that, Deerfield High School, you rented your gym uniform. Everybody wore the same thing, a Deerfield High School t-shirt that was white with the Deerfield logo on front, and the gym shorts that were red, and they were all leased. And they could have gotten into leasing us gym socks as well, and gym jock straps. Truly, wearing a jock strap. My brother Carl wore a jock strap all the time. And so I wore it when I played sports, but not for gym. We wore tighty whities back then, but again, a jock strap is better. And so they could have leased us the socks, the jock strap, and then over the jock strap, you can put compression gear. Yeah, over the jock strap. So like professional baseball, you put on a cup, it goes under, and then over it you put the compression gear. And here's Holy Cross, that's down the street, but Holy Cross only goes up to 8th grade. And so you go from is Holy Cross only the 6th grade? Because Bertram went to Holy Cross, but he went to Wilmot Junior High with me. So maybe Holy Cross only goes up to 6th grade? I don't know if it goes up to 8th grade. But it feeds in because it does the younger, so it competes against Wilmot Junior High. But then it fed into the Wilmot Elementary. Then it fed into the junior high system. You left Holy Cross and went to the junior high. Another way Catholic schools can integrate with public schools is after-school programs. So they can integrate, Catholic schools can integrate with public schools by having certain after-school programs. So here's the First Presbyterian Church over here where I went to, and this is where Risky Business, the train scene, was shot when he was standing to get the Metro train. Right here is the famous train scene, but Deerfield doesn't use that clip to advertise it, and they don't use the clip to advertise downtown Highland Park. Now, downtown Highland Park and the train station here has done an upgrade, but really not that much difference from where it was in Risky Business. But again, thinking back, they could also rented gym shoes. Truly, they could have leased gym shoes. So another way to do it is leasing it for people that can't buy it. So you have to have a resale market to lease. But again, sometimes renting it, so you can rent the whole gym uniform, the shoes, the socks, the jock strap, the compression underwear, the compression undershirt with the outer t-shirt, and then you can rent the winter gear, which they could have rented to us so we could go out in the winter, the sweatpants and sweatshirt. And so they could have rented that to Deerfield High School. And Zenga could have done the cleaning for the rental gear. So, I don't know, you can combine the renting and cleaning, or it can be separate entities. I don't know if Deerfield buys it or they rent the stuff themselves, but we rented it from Deerfield High School. So here's the famous train scene. But this also has one bad thing. I think of the Asian girl at Deerfield. She was the one here at this train station that got her leg caught under, and she was in the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, and she lost the bottom half of her leg because something happened with the train. It left too soon, and she got caught in the doorway. And I don't understand why trains wouldn't have sensors. Now, sensors, cameras, making sure everybody's clear with the shape recognition cameras and that on the platform and around. They can anticipate path by movement and where the train's coming through, and they can tell people to stop. They can do certain things where they have barriers that close and barriers that open. Truly, they can do things to further enhance safety. So in the door and the closing of the train, they can make sure the platform is clear in that, updating the camera systems. I feel really bad for that girl. She was an Asian girl who played in the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. But they could have updated the safety systems here. And my friend Selwyn, his father used to sit here at Deerfield waiting for the train to come in to get a fare. So people would get off and he would work in the evenings. His father did. And he was an immigrant, him and his mother. And they both worked. And my sister helped out. He spent a lot of time hanging out with Larry and doing things. So it's good to have family. When you say pay it forward to the community, now I'll give my sister and brother-in-law that. A lot of the kids came over, they fed them, they hung out with their kids because they had 8 kids. And so their house became a central point, and the kids came over, and she spent a fortune on food and feeding and taking care of those kids. And then Jeremy, one of the kids, had a hard time with his mother. Instead of Jeremy running away, my sister gave him an open door policy to their house. So when Jeremy got in problems with his mother, Jeremy came over and spent the night at my sister's house, who lived in Deerfield. But instead of these kids running away, think of giving them an outlet when there's a problem with the family. Like you have a problem with couples, sometimes spending the night at a friend's house or a relative's house, a brother or sister, and cooling off and then waking up in the morning and, sleeping on it and thinking about it and going out to your brother and talking about it. Sometimes you need these avenues to cool off. The police don't recommend any of this, and they can do community education in churches and talk about strategies to de-escalate violence and how to prevent your kid from running away and how to work issues out as a couple. Is sleeping on the couch appropriate? Is, my brother-in-law, not my brother-in-law, my brother Richard, when he was having a hard time with his wife, he went to live with my brother Carl. Now, that was a good thing, but there's another issue, but I'm not going to get into that, but it was a good thing. It gave a way for Richard to have a roof over his head and everything, and them to de-tension the relationship. Sometimes separation makes the heart grow fonder, and sometimes it allows people to revalue things. So what do they say? Let it go, and if you truly love it, it comes back. Well, the whole point is that people think about it, and they realize what they have, and they need that separation to ground themselves and realize what they have and what they would lose if they leave. And so sometimes instead of getting the War of the Roses, it's better to have an exit strategy where you can temporarily move in, and you need to do counseling. So the person moves out, and then you go to counseling meetings. And you work through it till you can come up with a reconciliation, hopefully, to move back. But also, it's a way to work through the period of separation as well. but you need counseling, whether it's a church doing it or a marriage counselor like Unya Lee or anyone else. That, I was going to go to Willow Creek for premarital counseling. I already set it up, but that was once I got engaged to Jen. The next step was premarital counseling. But you don't have to wait to engagement. And this is where I was wrong. We could have went to premarital counseling before. We did do some premarital stuff online, but we should have went to premarital counseling. I shouldn't have waited till I was engaged to her. If you're going to get married, which we did, she said yes multiple times, and I said yes to her. And so we could have just went through the premarital counseling, and it would have been better. So I shouldn't have waited. I didn't end up getting engaged, but I think it would have helped with the breakdown if we did the premarital counseling prior to everything happening. We would have handled the breakdown together better. So anyways, this is downtown Deerfield and the famous train station from Risky Business, but they need to put their portfolio together of the different movies. There's several movies, and this is when you're advertising online for these communities. Yes, I do believe in people moving. I don't believe in mass migration where millions upon millions of people simultaneously move, like what happened with the Great Migration with the blacks, or what happened with the Latinos. You had tens of millions of people just flooding eastward from Southwest United States, South, East LA and so on, and Arizona, and then it just flooded over immigration, and it just flooded. Now, we had the Cubans and everybody else come in from the Caribbean, and we had people coming in from Europe entering the East Coast as well. That's where you got the Italian mafia, the Russian mafia, all that. And the funny thing is, a lot of Russian Jews, and they brought with them the Russian mafia. The Jews were in the mafia. The Jews were in the Italian mafia. The Jews were in the Russian mafia. So they were part of the criminal organizations. You see it in a movie with Nicolas Cage, where he sells arms. He's a Russian Jew. So that's what they didn't do when they were trying to bring them over. They didn't vet them if they were criminals, and all these Jewish criminals came into the United States. Oh yeah, Christian criminals came in as well with them, and they weren't vetted. But I'm telling you, I used to go into Skokie, and they had the sign, "Save the Russian Jews." And I have my friend David. He was a Russian Jew. And I've been around other Russian Jews. But the thing is, most of them were good, truly. But still, it only takes a few bad apples, and then they spread their wings, and they contaminate others, and soon you have a serious problem. So the one thing the synagogues didn't do, they created horrible things inside the synagogues because they didn't vet the people they were bringing in. So yes, you were saving them from, at that time, communism, but they were criminals over there, and they continued to be criminals over here. And then they converted other Jewish people to crime as well. So yes, the Italian Milan Lansky and others, Bugsy Siegel and many others, those were in the Italian mafia, but many in the Russian mafia. So you can go make movies about it. It's the past, and that's fine. But you have to understand with immigration where you made your mistakes. So Deerfield's going to have a Harvest Fest. And I'll pull up here. So they're going to have this Harvest Fest, it says. And these are the businesses in here. And that's sponsored. Thank you to our sponsors. And so these are the people that are going to sponsor Harvest Fest. And they have it right here. These farmers. And hopefully they're getting much more educated than they were. So, Deerfield Farmers Market, food, friends, and fun. But do you know, Whole Foods can be here as well. This is not just little businesses. Jewel, Whole Foods, Costco. They can set up a tent here too in the farmers market. And they can decide on what they're going to sell within the farmers market. But they can be here as well with these purveyors. And Costco, Whole Foods, Walmart, and that can check out the farmers market. Maybe they find a purveyor they want to do business with. You know, it's a two-way street. You know, Coke has a team, and Pepsi does, I think, too. Both of them, I'm almost positive, that go around looking for product. Some of it comes to them, but they have an actual team sourcing. It's just like at the mutual funds, Vanguard and that. We have actual teams sourcing. Sometimes people come to us, and they do, but most of the time we source. And so Coke and Pepsi and that, they have teams sourcing. So Costco and that, they can set up at these. They have a little tent in it, but they can also visit these to source, like visiting the flea markets, the source, to see if there's any good ideas. And that's what a buyer does. Like Laura, she used to buy for Jewel Osco. And they go out and they source. So the buyers are supposed to be active and out there looking at things. One of the greatest things that made Target and made it Target, because their buyers were so good about sourcing. Some things came to them, but most of the time it was their buyers going out there and finding this stuff and bringing it into Target. And Target had better buyers when it came to clothing and housewares, I think it was. Yeah, it was housewares. I think it primarily might have been, it might have been better in both clothing and housewares, but it was better in housewares than Walmart. And so they had active buyers sourcing. And Target had a better buyer group, and this is where the intellectual property comes in of sourcing. So going to the flea markets and the farmers markets, yeah, people are looking for you, but you can go in anonymously and source, and if you see anything that you're interested in, give a card and say, we'd like to talk to you a little bit more about your produce. And, a lot of times these people don't have the ability to scale, but that's fine. You can give a local brand space in your Jewel or your Whole Foods over here. It was Jewel, now it's Whole Foods in downtown Deerfield. The Jewel is farther up at Deerfield. This is the Commons in downtown, and then there's the other mall that's up in Deerfield. And so there's a Sky Zone also in there. And I guess I can do the long way around. But here, the Deerfield train tracks. But the thing is, the train service needs to tell Uber and Lyft and that how many people are on the train and if anyone wants it. So they can have a thing where they can request it in advance. When they get on, they're getting off, they need a taxi cab. The train service can use that and let them know. So it can be on their app. It's a convenience. It makes things riding the train more efficient. They'll have an Uber or a Lyft or a taxi cab waiting for them when they get off. So it would have been better for Selwyn's father. He knows exactly when the train's arriving, and he knows that somebody wants him. Sometimes he would wait, the train would arrive, and there was no fare. So here's the Deerfield Commons. And so Whole Foods in here. So they can grab some local vendors. They have to go through laboratories. They have to check out the product. And there's a whole process that it has to go through. But a local vendor can get some space in the Whole Foods next to the ones that they do nationally. The local vendor doesn't have an ability to scale, so they can source some of their space for local product. So they have a micro. So these are micro batches. You ever heard of micro brews? Well, there's not much of them to go around. So it makes it unique. They have some local choices as well to go along with their national choices. So again, you can fit in the small local farmer. But they need to source these out, just like going to the flea markets and that, and sourcing out ideas. So they redid this